everyone, Monica Jazik from RPI Education, and welcome to the Financial Freedom Summit. In this series, you'll hear from 21 experts sharing powerful wealth building strategies that 98% of people are not using. These interviews are packed with real actionable steps to help you fast track your financial freedom. So let's jump in with today's guest, Stephen Crummy. Hi, Stephen. How are you?
I'm good, Monica. How are you?
I am fantastic. I'm just going to give a quick read of your bio
Mhm.
to the audience,
Yep,
and then we'll get into those questions.
sure.
All right. So Stephen's industry knowledge spans over 27 years in real estate, property development, and construction, and has resulted in well over $1 billion in property transactions. He's renowned for his knowledge and professional expertise in delivering successful outcomes for his clients. Over the course of his career, his portfolio extends across multiple sectors, including defense, health, industrial, retail, commercial, high-end luxury, and multi-residential developments, construction, refurbishment, and remediation services. This extensive professional exposure has enhanced his ability to communicate effectively and deliver exceptional customer service throughout the complete property cycle. Within the real estate sector, Stephen is renowned for his negotiation skills, which has allowed him to obtain record sale prices for his clients, and he surrounded himself with like-minded and highly successful millionaire and billionaire entrepreneurs around the globe and meets with them on a weekly basis to discuss opportunities ranging from IPOs, property acquisitions, property developments, and business investment deals, including private lending. Welcome, Stephen.
Thank you. Thank you.
That
I
that
actually need
is
to change
quite
that because
quite
it's
the
actually
bio.
33 years now.
Now we're so excited to have a fellow Australian or Aussie on the Financial Freedom Summit. I love your backdrop. Obviously, you're tuning in from Sydney, Australia.
Yep.
Probably one of the most
Yep.
expensive housing markets in the world.
Yes, definitely.
So what you do really is not easy, but you've managed to do this for several years and
Yeah, definitely. It is yeah, Australia is a very expensive property market. There is there's a saying that I always use, which is the money is where the money is is in terms of located. So if if you want to make uh, financial success in property, you got to look for where people have the money to be able to buy the property. And you could develop in a lower, let's say, a lower socioeconomic area. However, the costs of construction remain the same, but the sale also is lower.
Mhm.
So it reduces your margin significantly, your return on investment significantly, and the risks increase greatly. So you're always best to invest in areas where people have money to purchase good quality property because, like I said, the construction cost is generally the same, but people are paying a lot more for it.
I love that you said that, and that obviously really shows a different path to thinking because so many people, when they get into real estate investing, they make a huge mistake, which is investing in low growth areas because the properties are cheap. And it's like a psychological game. People don't think that people can make money in high growth, expensive markets. But in reality, a deal is a deal is a deal. And it's the investor's job, no matter what the property is acquired for, to really make that work. And we have to start looking at the return on investment components, not, oh, I just, got this property for so cheap, or oh, this property's $1 million or $4 million. I mean, you do have one of the highest housing markets, I believe
Yeah.
Sydney is in the world. But Vancouver is another housing market that's quite not as expensive, but really up there. And people are making it work and making more money, say in like downtown Vancouver, than they are in, the tertiary markets. So it really always can be done. People should not get psyched out by the buy-in price or the price to get in. Because you actually make that achievable for investors sometimes, do you not? Because when you're doing your
That
developments.
that's correct. So we're always looking for quality locations. I mean, there is a lot of expansion in Australia at the moment with the second airport going in Sydney, um, all those sorts of things. But they're going to take some time. I mean, if you're a person who bought a farmland out there and sold your property because of the airport for development, then you've made a lot of money. So the time now to make money in that area is not now because the tickets the ticket price is quite high at the moment. So the growth the money's already been made there. So it's very difficult to then go and buy a property. Let's go and invest in a new house that's being in a new development area. But then that ends up being negatively geared. So let's say you're buying to hold the property and rent it out. You're doing a negative gear approach to save a couple of, $1,000 on your tax return, but that then is affecting your ability to borrow money because it's reducing your capacity to fund the mortgage.
Mhm.
So that's where a lot of people also make a big mistake is that they buy a property, and I always tell people you're better off buying a property that is breaking even or is making money. It's always good to pay tax if you're making money, right? But if you're not making money and you're losing money, then it's never a good deal,
No.
right? Because that affects your ability to get another mortgage, to buy another property investment because your ability to service that mortgage has now reduced. So don't be ever afraid of making money and having to pay tax. I mean, having to pay tax, obviously, you try and pay as little tax as you can by doing certain things that are within the law, right? And I'm not a financial advisor or tax accountant. So you're obviously always better going to those people to help you set up the right way to do it. Um, but yes, always look for properties that are going to enable you to grow your wealth, not reduce it, and being able to borrow more, not suffering from being asset rich, cash poor.
Absolutely. Yes. You need a nice compromise as well, having long-term assets growing in the background, but also having cash flowing investments coming in. And it's funny that you said that about the taxes, because so in Australia, I think Australian and Canadians are pretty similar with our taxes. And, we could kind of like, you know, pay a little less tax, but we are not able to evade tax. We don't want to evade tax. We just want to diverge tax a little bit and use
Yeah.
proper corporate structures. But so many people get into it, and their first concern is, oh my goodness, like I want to be able to like do this as a tax depreciating asset. We're like, look, you're not even making money to write off. That's not even the way that you do it. Just get started first, and then afterwards, when you start making loads. I love how the US market, like they are able to pay no tax and do all sorts of different things with their tax strategies and government. And that's absolutely incredible. Maybe we'll get lucky like that in Canada and in
I don't
Australia
know about
one
that.
day.
In Australia, the Albanese government's talking about trying to create more tax, and we're one of the highest tax countries in the world, and they're wanting to take more
Exactly.
because
Yeah.
of their spending habits. But anyway,
No, it's so true. And it is frustrating, but it's funny how some people also, it's important people don't lose all their money and their profits in tax before they get in these investments. But at the same time, it also is an indication you're making money too. So you pay your tax, but we got to incorporate those into the equation. Plus, use the corporate structures, people. That's what your accountants are there for. I am heavily dependent on our accountant, and we have great conversations, every year, which is okay. So you have this corp, this corp, this corp. How much money do we want to make this year? How much tax do you want to pay? Here's your options. That alone is quite financial freedom if you think about it. I know you still have to pay it, but a lot better than just doing that trading time for money, working, and then you don't have a choice. There is really not much of a choice when you're paying that tax. Walk us through your main wealth building strategy. Like, how did you get started, in real estate investing? What's your favorite strategy that really created wealth for yourself?
So if you know, I read so the first question that you had, which you just touched on, you know, I guess I want to go a bit more on a personal level, because for me, unless your core is right, right, nothing. If your core isn't right, nothing you do will work,
Yeah.
right? So I want to talk more about the core because a lot of people don't talk about that, and it's fundamentally the foundation to being able to build wealth,
Hmm.
right? So, I mean, for those who know me, I am, you know, I'm a Christian, right? I'm not afraid to say that, right? It is it forms the basis of who I am. And, you know, when you ask the question, you know, what does wealth mean to you? I mean, we've met those people in our life that wealth is just money, right? They are void of everything else. And it becomes their God. And they don't care what they do to get it. Now, to me, that is not wealth,
Hmm.
right? So I look at it and ask the question, you know, what does wealth mean to Stephen, right? And to me, you know, I think of what Christ said in the book of Matthew, where he says, where your treasure is, there your heart is also, right? So to me, that phrase suggests that your greatest priorities and deepest affections are revealed by where you choose to invest your time, energy, and resources. Right, so it's very important. So understanding what do you treasure the most in life, and for most people, it comes down to the point. Well, I treasure my family, I treasure my time, you know, I treasure my children, what have you. It's not really I treasure money,
Hmm.
right? And it's being able to distinguish between those two things, right? Because if you don't understand where if your treasure is just focused on how much money I have in my bank account, you'll lose
Oh, yes.
because that'll come out in the relationships you build in business and in life. Because people will see that you're just using them to gain advantage in some way, form, or shape, right? So for me, um, having you know for me, money is not. It's not about money. It's not how many shiny toys you have, but for me, it's more God in terms of my faith and relationship with God. You know, because when I leave this world, I'm not taking any of it with me. Nobody
That's right.
has, no one ever will. So what's the point of gaining all this wealth and it mean nothing? Right. So to me, in my business, in building wealth, the number one priority is that relationship that I have with my savior. Right. Second of all, family. Am I being the best son? Am I being am I being the best um, husband? And am I being the best father to my children? Now, understand, I haven't said am I the perfect one because nobody's perfect,
No.
right? We're all growing. We're all want to be a better version of ourselves. So, you know, how am I? Um, how is it? How is my relationship with my family helping them grow? Right? And I don't. A lot of people that you hear is, you know, you don't have to scroll much on your social media feed to find someone who's offering the next shiny toy and how to create wealth. Right? That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, them are the ones making money, not you. Right? So you know, having that ability to be able to understand, first of all, God and family, and then the second one is random people in the street or random people that you meet that when you're networking, you know, how do you come across to those people? You know, do they notice something different about you? Do you stand out in a way that they don't see in the world? Are you a light in their dark world? Right. So for me, and then the fourth thing is health, because without it, you're not going to last long enough to create wealth. Right.
Exactly.
So God, family, people, and health. If you've got to have those four things under some control, you know, have those priorities as a core to who you are. and what what is the what's the fruit that comes out of your life? Is it greed? Are you manipulating people to gain more money? Are you jealous of someone who has more money? Are you Do you have self-ambition? Right? Are those the sorts of fruit that are coming from your life? Or is it, things like the Christ said, love, joy, peace, bearing with one another, self-control, all those sorts of things. So I think it's very, very important to have that core of yourself in a good position. You're not perfect. I'm not perfect. I make a lot of mistakes, but you learn from those mistakes and you grow. But having that strong foundation also helps you make sure that you don't fall for the rubbish that's out there.
Yes, because there's a
I
lot of
mean,
rubbish out there.
there is a lot of rubbish, and especially when in a world where people are struggling, financially, it's very easy to fall into the trap where, oh yeah, I'll go, to this conference, I'll pay all this money, and then you go to the conference and then they give you a taste, but then you got to pay thousands and thousands of
Hmm.
dollars more to get their so-called perfect
Of course.
course for you to gain wealth, right? It's all rubbish.
Hmm.
It's all, well, I shouldn't say all, I would say 95% of it is rubbish.
Yes,
All that person is trying to do is take your money and make themselves wealthier. And you'll
absolutely.
always find that you'll do one course, but then you have to buy something else to get more. And then you've got to buy something else to get more. So if you don't have that strong core, right,
Hmm.
of belief, then you'll fall for anything.
Yes, because they distract you with the shiny
Yeah.
consumer items on Instagram or,
Yep.
on there or talk about how much property they have or, you know, all the fancy things that they can do. But money is fleeting. It's easy come,
Yeah.
easy go. But character and principles and morals and values is forever. That
Yeah.
has to be the bedrock of who you
Yeah.
are. And I always tell my kids, it's what you do when no one's looking who defines you as you truly are. And you need to go to bed with yourself at night. So when you're going out to and I've been to all these seminars and all these things, I've been doing this for 15 years. And I always share my story how we went to the seminar and it was like 3 days of neuro linguistic programming. They had us doing crazy stuff like getting our credit card limits hypened up and, running out to restaurants and negotiate, seeing what we can negotiate and doing all these things.
Mm.
And they don't give you all the information. And I'm actually really grateful. I'm that one that we did all the information they told us to do. It did lead to $1 million of mistakes because we did too much, which I'm grateful for because that makes us an excellent consultant. But what makes me sad is so many people are taken advantage of that can't do it. And when people are talked into things, they're not able to actively participate. And
Yeah.
wealth building takes work, and you have to invest in yourself, and it can't be for a watch
Mm.
or it can't be for a fancy car. It has to be for the greater purpose because numbers are infinite. And if the chase
Mm.
is the number, you're going to be chasing numbers forever because there's no
That's
cap.
right.
You have to. My biggest why that I always equate it to is time, money, freedom. It goes to the time, money, and freedom. And that includes all the things that you were speaking about, religion, family, lifestyle. And I think if we have, the resources and that bedrock to fall down on, as an entrepreneur, it really gives you a strong place to rebuild as well.
Yep. Definitely. I mean, the other important thing is strategies, and I call them financial strategies because the things you choose in life are going to affect your financial situation, whether you like it or not. They might be the smallest choice or the biggest choice. Either way, they will affect your financial freedom in your life, and that could come down to choosing the right partner, whether that's as in a marriage or boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, as well as in business,
Mhm.
right? So you could be with a partner that is extremely risk adverse, right? And that will be an anchor to stop you from being able to take the educated risks and make more money, right?
Absolutely.
Because there's going to be that, because if you're not equally yoked in that respect, that's going to cause conflict, and that conflict affects your ability to be able to create financial success as well. And it's not saying it's always good to have someone who's a, like I take risks, right? I'm not risk averse at all, but I need someone who is more steady,
Hmm.
right? That's going to put a slight handbrake on me and go, no, no, have you thought about X, Y, Z, right?
Yes.
If
Yeah.
I didn't have that, to me that's all, that's equally yoked as well, because you have someone that says stop, think about it, which you need,
Hmm.
right? But if it's an extreme, then that's where it becomes a problem. You have to have the same focus in life as well. And it's the same thing in business as well. If I've seen so many partnerships, they've been mates or friends that have gotten together and created a business. And for a while, it's been great. But after a while, there's friction between the two, because it's like you don't really know someone until you've lived with them,
Oh,
right?
yes. Oh, yes. That's what we tell people about
Right?
their joint venture partners. Pick your partners wisely
Yeah. Take your
because
time.
it's like a marriage and you're getting into
Yeah.
bed with someone, really. So,
Take it. That's right. Take your time. I mean, I give the example of, and you not understand who I'm talking about, but you come around certain people who are more wealthier than you or what have you, and you want to learn from them, and you want to spend a lot of time, and a lot of time, when I'm talking about time in this respect, I'm talking about years. It can take years to really get to know somebody, from
absolutely.
a business partnership side of things in particular, because no one's ever going to show their true identity in the first couple of months or in the first year. It's only after a while do they their true identity starts to come out. And so, in this situation, I had made the decision I'm not going to be paying for all the courses, right? That I've seen other people spend hundreds, if not millions of dollars paying,
Hmm.
right? I'm just going to sit around and learn via osmosis, which I did. And then I thought, okay, here's an opportunity that's been presented. Let's see how it goes, right? It was a risk, because the people that I had relationships that I was using to help create this deal for this person, were high profile people in massive commercial real estate, side of the market. And but the person that was involved ended up diabolically destroying the deal,
Was
right?
it the ego that ended up destroying it, or was it the greed?
Both. I think greed produces ego, right? So as a result of that, I have been in damage control for the last year with those people that I knew,
Hmm.
right? Because I did everything right, and they were impressed with how I do things. However, it tainted the way they looked at me because of this person. So it was so I tested the waters in that situation and saw that the fruit was bad.
Yeah,
And I thought, nah, enough's enough. So be careful with the partners you take on, because they will either make you or break you,
absolutely.
personally and in business as well. So, in terms of creating financial freedom, very, very, very important. Greed is a pandemic in this day and age. And I don't want to sound too negative, but I don't want to just paint a shiny picture. Oh, this is wonderful,
No.
because these are the things that the realities of what you face when you're trying to create wealth, right?
Yes.
We have Greed is a pandemic in this day and age. And like I said before, you just have to scroll a little bit on your social media feed to find someone who's offering you the next quick fix solution to financial freedom. Don't fall for it.
There is no
Right?
quick fix to
No,
financial
no.
freedom. It's,
It's
but there's a strategy for then actions that people could take by learning particular fields that best suit their interest, where they want to go, because investors are pretty siloed, and which is good. And so when we try to diversify, I personally am primarily in real estate. You're primarily in real estate. But there's other people out there doing well in crypto. There's other people with stock options, people in different types of business growth. And, it's fantastic. But every one of us works very, very hard at what it is we're doing, for sure,
Yeah,
to get there. So
that's
there's
right. So
no,
going back
yeah.
to, I guess going back to the financial side of things, what have I focused on in terms of looking, okay, we're moving away from the core, right? Of what I just spoke about. What has been my strategies? My strategy has been my business, right? And making that effective,
Hmm.
right? Something that creates the cash cow to be able to invest, right? So, you know, I like to always try new things and everything, and but I've always managed to focus on things predominantly around property because that's what I know. I started off in construction, I worked my way up, I started my own business, and I've had, you know, I've grown my business to the core of my business is building consultancy and property development. So that's being engaged by clients to solve their property issues, right? Whether that's they want to develop this property or whether they need to fix this building, right? So those two are my core. Then I added on, as you know, the real estate side of the business, so real estate sales, and I also tagged on building management, right,
Hmm.
to my business. So everything around things that I know, right? I didn't try and so I diversified within the industry that I'm in. I didn't diversify outside the industry that I'm in because I don't know anything else. So stick to what you know best, right?
Yes.
Unless you've already got that team and that business working by itself and you're out of that business, then you can start looking at other things, which is what I'm doing which is what I'm doing now as well. But for instance, but the example I gave to you before we started was the real estate side of the business, right? I had to look at that because it wasn't as profitable and was actually sucking money out of the business, right?
Hmm.
Because there's so many costs involved and there's so much in Sydney, the real estate market is saturated with real estate agents. So for every house, there's probably 50 agents trying to sell that, trying to get that sale, right? So it becomes very difficult. So the return on investment reduces, right? So I gave myself to the end of our financial year, which was June, and I made the decision to get rid of that side of the business. So being able to make the strategy of being able to understand what's going on now, and you only understand what's going on now by looking at the past and seeing the cycles, and then looking to the future and going, okay, here I am in this point in time. This is what I know from the past. Looking at the economy, what's happening in Australia, what's going on, is it worthwhile pursuing this at the
Hmm.
expense of something else? Right. And the answer was no. Right. So I made the decision to get rid of the real estate sales side. It doesn't mean I don't do it. I still do it for my clients that, but I'm not actively doing the real estate side, like most real estate agents. It'll only be from word of mouth, so to
Hmm.
speak.
More like an
Um,
investor agent, I guess you are now.
correct,
Hmm.
correct. So focusing on my business, I then tightened down because we've got a government now that historically spends too much money that they don't have, right? Which creates a lot of problems, to your local, to your individuals who are struggling to pay, right? So that sort of period from understanding the past, you go, okay, well, I need to buckle down on my business and what I'm doing and making sure that the systems procedures are right, making sure that the deliverables are correct, making sure that I'm providing a top quality service, right? So you got to understand the flow of what's happening around you and being able to pivot and make the decisions necessary, whether they're hard decisions or not. Even the hard ones, you have to make them, and the sooner you make them, the better off you are. Now, if you're a person that doesn't have a business, well, then you go, okay, well, I'm going to be the best employee there is to make sure that my position is fixed. I'm not going to lose my job, right?
Hmm.
So if you're just starting out, your strategy is where are you working right now? Become the best you are, right? Get a promotion, do those sorts of things. Start with the base things that you can control. And the only thing you can control is you, right? Nothing else. So focus on that part of it, whether it's a business that you have, get it right. In this situation where there's so many things happening globally, we need to make sure that we have laser focus. So
Yeah.
in terms of creating financial wealth, you have to be able to read the room, read the world and what's going on, and make those decisions that you can control.
Especially with all the AI and replacing jobs. And I mean, people could be doing great at their job and all of a sudden their company just lays them off. And there's so many different career sectors that are going to be replaced with AI. I think everyone needs to really take a really good look at their position, their career, and start getting some plan Bs going, which is why you mentioned seven
Learn
streams.
something new. Yeah,
Mhm. You mentioned residual income, which I love because diversification in an industry. With real estate, we usually say build your real estate business and diversify. So I could be an agent, I could be a consultant, I could be an investor for self, an investor with others, a project manager, property manager. You could diversify and construction, build out these streams, which is amazing. I think average people who are working hard, trading time for money, doing jobs they love, they also have to realize that those jobs could go away. This is why investments in the background, I firmly believe that every Canadian, American, and Australian, I always say, needs to have real estate in their portfolio, even if it's a primary residence, 1 to 3 boring buy, rent, hold properties, and an investment for cash flow. That's all they need to have in their portfolio so if they do have a career replacement or job replacement, their TFSA is not going to be, or sorry, their retirement fund's not going to be compromised. They're not going to be, their paycheck won't be compromised, and they have sort of those income streams kind of working in the background. And you guys, if you hate real estate, which I still think everyone needs real estate in their portfolio, there's other streams as well. We really got to get our money working for us,
yeah,
not just us working for our money.
yeah,
But that was a good call. I really admire you for, cutting that off and putting your focus elsewhere. I mean, we have to be laser focused, and you still operate it with other people, but a lot of people out there feel they have to be real estate agents to be investors. I've done this for over 15 years and I'm not a real estate agent. And it really is important to kind of pay attention as an entrepreneur to all the different income streams coming in and where things are going, how to pivot. And otherwise, none of us are going to survive these
yeah,
crazy times. So
yeah.
you mentioned before, though, you were doing construction before you started
Yeah,
out all this. Tell us about before and
that's
like what made you do a huge shift into real estate? What was that pivotal moment where you're like, I'm gonna do
so.
this more?
Yeah, I started off as a quantity surveyor. So that's someone who reads the plans and works out how much everything costs to construct. But early on in my career, I decided that, well, I didn't want to get stuck behind a chair. Now, don't get me wrong, in Australia, a good QS will get paid up to around 300,000 a year, right?
Hmm.
Um, but I didn't want to get stuck behind a chair. So when I remember with my first employer, I said to him, I want to be at least 2 to 3 days on site, right, to see how everything goes together. Right? Because one thing to learn and to look at plans and work out numbers, but then to understand how the process of what happens before you start on site and when you break ground and when you build, it's important knowledge. So So he agreed, and so I was spent, sometimes 2 days a week, sometimes 3 days a week on site, and learnt. I'd get there, get my hands dirty, learn the intimate details of how to build a house, right? And that helped me become really good at what I did. So then I slowly made my way up through the business. So I went, from a QS, wanted to be a site supervisor, project manager, construction manager, project director, general manager. Worked my way through it all. And I've worked, for some big companies and worked on multi-billion dollar projects, government, defense, all those sorts of hospitals, all those sorts of things. And then the GFC, global financial crisis. I think this might be some young people that might listen that have no idea about that. you know, Came along, and I realized then that even working for somebody is not secure.
Hmm.
Nothing is. Now, don't get me wrong. It's it's um it's great to have a good job that pays, and a good employer. Definitely, it's a great thing, and not everybody's cut out to be an entrepreneur. But I remember talking around the same time to a friend and mentor of mine, and I'd be on these massive projects, these billion-dollar projects that you'd be in design meetings for over a year, and
Hmm.
people can't even make a decision on what color chair they want, right?
Yeah.
And I get bored. I'd be twiddling my thumbs, because I want to go on to the next thing.
Hmm.
And I'd always find this through my career. And he said, and I was talking to him, and I said, I just get bored. I want to do something else. And I was talking to him for a while, and he goes, Steve, you know what your problem is? And you don't realize it. You have an entrepreneur mindset. And I'm like, what does that mean? What is that? I didn't even know what that meant. And he explained to it, and it was true. So, I made that decision to start my own business and use that to then grow and add those other items to my core business. So yes, I started in construction. I'm a licensed builder. I'm a licensed real estate agent. All those sorts of things, and worked on incredible projects. But I wanted to provide a holistic service to my client, right? And that was from conception, building the project, and to managing the building, the sales, etc. Which is why I tagged on certain things to the core of my business and not venture outside that, right? I didn't want him, because one of the things he also said to me is, don't invest in things you don't know about. You'll fail, right? Because you'll believe what someone tells you, but they're not telling you. They never tell you the full truth, right? So
Yeah.
don't make that mistake. So I focused on that part, and that's the course that I took to create my own wealth. Now, if you're not an entrepreneur, you got to if you want to be an entrepreneur, you need to understand that it's not all sunshine and roses.
No.
It is hard, hard, hard work. You're up early in the morning. You're going to bed late at night. You are making sacrifices left, right, and center, and you make those mistakes, and it can cause problems personally in your relationships, all those sorts of things. And that's where it comes back to choosing the right partner, right? That
Hmm.
understand and is going to come along the journey with you no matter what. But it's not cut out for everybody,
No.
right? And this is why I say you need to although you see someone who's successful now, but I've been in the industry. I need to update that from 27 to 33 years. I know I look
Hmm.
young. It's the Spanish, my mum's Spanish side. I actually look young. I'm 52 this year, but it's hard work, and you have to have grit and perseverance, right, to keep going no matter what, and making those judgment calls when they need to be made, even if it's laying off people, even if it's not the right fit for the business, or deciding to close that part of the business to make sure that the rest doesn't suffer.
Yeah.
Right, you have to be able to make those decisions. So surrounding yourselves with people who have been through that and networking with those sorts of people is very, very important. Very important strategy. Now, yes, my strategy has been, you know, the building side of things and property, right? And like you said, property, if you want to make true wealth, you've got to get into property,
Hmm. Well, there's
right?
no other wealth
It,
builder where you can
no,
accrue
it's
that
tried and
amount
tested.
of wealth. Even if you want to do something else after, I always say real estate is the only acquisition where you can make that much money, not
Yeah,
quickly, because it's not a rich, not a get rich quick, but utilizing strategic leverage and
mm,
specific strategies that you're going to get returns on investment that just are not achievable in any other investment unless you have a fluke crypto or a fluke stock pick, which
yeah,
is you may as
that's
well
right.
get struck by lightning. But real estate, you could actually, it's the only investment really out there. So even if people want to get that chunk of income and then go invest it with a high-end wealth advisor or something afterwards to sustain residual passive income, but no one will pay attention to you until you have X amount of dollars available to invest. So a lot of people say, oh, I just invest with the banks, but no one's getting good advice. All the banks are doing is taking your money, investing it in real estate.
Yeah, that's right. Don't bother doing that. So, for people who aren't entrepreneurs and that, if you're looking at property, one of the things I find fascinating is that a lot of people don't even when they think of investment, they always think of buying a house, right? But your aim is to create more cash, more income. You need more income to be able to buy something better that is going to return you a lot more, right? So depending on, and like I said, I'm not a financial advisor, but from my personal experience, is don't look at commercial property as well. When I say commercial, I'm talking about industrial or office space. I don't get involved in retail. Retail's, although the rents are a lot higher, they're also a lot more risky
Hmm.
in that respect. But if you've got a good commercial property, and banks like to loan in Australia, like to loan towards commercial property because it diversifies their risk as well,
Yeah.
right? And you're not investing in necessarily bricks and mortar there. You're investing in business that is in there because they pay for everything. They pay for electricity, they pay for upgrades, they pay for the fit outs, for for everything. The cost, it's not like in residential where you still got to pay the maintenance and all that. No, in commercial, the tenant pays for it all, right? So it's a great cash cow to have. And you can buy a commercial property a lot cheaper than a house.
Hmm.
But you could be having, banks are happy to loan towards those, like I said, and you have a good cash coming in on a monthly basis, right?
Yeah.
So, don't think about other things other than houses to invest in. You want to build that cash flow to be able to then use that money to be able to buy a property in a more wealthy area where the rent is a lot higher.
Hmm.
And so your return is a lot higher. So just think about the type of strategy that you want to do beforehand, and really plan it and speak to the right people about it.
And you could also, I know you had some partnership opportunities before, like if you don't do it full time, you're busy working. It's important to also know how to vet deals where you could partner with people who will do it for you,
Yeah.
and with you. And sometimes I don't like partnerships with too many people. But sometimes, and I think there are a lot of sophisticated investors like yourself doing higher end projects that might take, say, maybe four or five investors on, two, three, four, five, and for higher end projects and help people get these better returns and suit their needs by
Yeah.
completing these projects. But it all goes back to what this whole conversation started with, is to be able to know your partner, know their core, know their principles, know what they stand for. And an excellent question to ask your joint venture partner if anyone's ever looking to work with people or if people are looking to give their capital is to find out situations in the past when things have gone wrong And how did that person behave when things went wrong? And if it's just another human, say two of you going in a deal together, an excellent question to ask your partner is, how do you react when things don't go your way or things go wrong? Character is huge in
Yeah,
wealth building, in freedom, partnership, and in real estate, because anyone can be great when things are going great, but a true indication of someone's character is how do they act when everything is really kind of like falling all apart.
yeah,
So,
yeah. That's right. I'll give you, I mean, you don't make money without losing, most people who have made money have lost money as well. So I'll use this example with me, right? I knew an architect um, that I did a lot of work with. An investment opportunity came up. He, um, went through it all. There was some other partner that he had, and he asked if I wanted to be involved in it. And we went through it all, and everything seemed okay. I trusted him. I didn't know this other person that he was with, and I did meet with this other lady. For me, when you're investing, it's all about numbers, right? To make sure that that everything's covered. So based on the information that they had given me, I decided to invest, right? But they wouldn't. The only thing they wouldn't give me was the address, right, of where
oh.
it was, right? They wouldn't give me the address because it was a deal that had to happen quickly, and there was all these other reasons. However, got all the numbers, and I trusted him, right? So then once everything was done and secured, they gave me, financially secured. They then gave me the address. So I looked up the address and started to work from the base up, and I said to him, this doesn't stack up. But my money was already given,
Oh no.
right? So um, anyway, the other, so the other, what had ended up happening is that the other person that I didn't know, right, was not divulging all the information, and it was because of that that the deal fell through, and I ended up losing a lot of money,
Right.
right? And I, didn't mean it. I tried to look at different ways to cut it, um, to try and make it work. Obviously, with my background, but it just wouldn't stack up,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because of limitations, certain limitations on heights that you could go, all these sorts of things. And this is stuff he should have known,
It
right?
is. And if you got taken advantage of it with your experience, picture all these other people who are pitched things left, right, and center. This is why everyone, if you are looking to invest in real estate passively, you still have to understand the fundamentals and how it works. If he had that address, he could have put it together probably in less than 60 seconds and said,
Yeah.
no, because this area has never done this and this strategy
I
doesn't
went
work in
I
this
went against my
area.
own instincts. Right? I went against my own instincts and trusted him, right? Which I shouldn't have. So if your gut's telling you this is not a good deal, like there is red flags here, even if there's one red flag, don't do the deal.
Absolutely. The deal has to make sense. And you said it earlier that one of your mentors told you that things have to be simple. And real estate is a fairly simple investment. When it gets complicated, I stop listening because I get confused, and a confused mind does not act. And that's why it's so
Yeah,
important if people just take the time and learn how to vet deals, that they're able to, it actually can make sense in this ABC approach. So they're not left only trusting people and trusting their partners. And a wise person once said, trust everyone, validate everything. And
yeah,
so
that's very
I
good. Yeah,
love that saying because it's okay to validate. And when people are sometimes when people don't give addresses too, they say, "Oh, because you're going to give the property from under me." And that's a
yes,
red flag too because you're like, "Okay, so you don't trust me as your partner. See, I'd give you the property because I'm not going to do business with someone I don't trust. But if you think I'm going to do that to you, chances are you might even do something like that
yeah,
to me." So
exactly.
it's
Exactly.
crazy.
So yeah, be very careful. And yeah, the trust is a big thing. If they can't trust you with the small things, how can how can you trust them with the big things? You
So in
can't.
Australia, let's do this from an Aussie approach too, like strategic, like conventional financial planning in Australia. What do they tell everyone to do? What are the schools telling people to do, the government telling people to do, and how does your strategy go against this?
Yeah, so you if you go to a financial planner, they'll ask you to put it into X, Y, a bit of the bit of property, a bit of stock, a bit of this, a bit of that, right? And then you ask the financial planner, how much did you make last financial year? Right?
Good
If you're not making
question.
a shitload of money,
No,
right, don't give me financial advice, right?
exactly.
You're just not the right person to talk to. The government will always push you to invest in superannuation, right, in your retirement fund. But as we saw with this government, anyone that has $3 million plus is getting taxed on unrecognized gain.
Mm-hmm.
That means money that you haven't made yet, they're taxing you on, which
Yeah.
is absolutely ludicrous. How can you tax somebody on potential stuff that hasn't even been
So when is the
made yet?
tax due?
Well,
Because I don't get,
financial
I know
year.
Avon has a superannuation and I rolled mine over to his and he's not allowed to even touch it till 65.
Yeah.
So if they're
So now
tax,
if
and
you're
it's
making
very
3
easy
million
to
plus, you're
accrue.
getting taxed.
So in Australia, and for people who are listening in Australia, they automatically do supers. It's not optional.
It's not
And they
optional. Yeah.
start this at 14 years old. It's actually a good thing to make sure everyone's retirement is provided for. So getting a $2 million super is not that out of, it's not reserved for the ultra wealthy. It really does accrue over those years. So all these people who are counting on this for their number one thing, easily, even general laborers can get a $2 million super. An average person, and so they go over $3 million. They're going to be taxed on this. And
Yeah.
when does the tax
That's
due
right.
though? When you withdraw it? Or they
That
don't tell me they're taxing you now in real time and not even giving you access to it, please.
No, so I'm yet to get all the details around it, but from my understanding is that once you pull it out, you're taxed.
Yeah. That's they and you know what
Right.
they do that here too in the in our accounts too. They encourage the government encourages for the registered savings plans and the retirement plans. You're not allowed to pull it out. As soon as you pull it out, you're taxed, and you're only allowed to pull it a certain amount a year. And it goes right back to those wonderful tax laws that we have. That you maybe you're getting out what a couple $100,000 a year, but you're taxed on like 50% of that.
Yeah.
So
So even with that, my recommendation is always try and set up your own self-managed super fund, right? There where you have property investments in
yes.
that fund that are going to create cash flow income rather than a big handout at the
Absolutely.
end of it.
And people
Um,
can self-direct their entire super as well, like use your superannuation money and actually self-direct those funds in
mm,
actual real estate and products of their choosing. We actually have a section of that in Real Estate Wins and in our module for self-directed registered funds. We've actually included the Australian model and process as well. So for Australia,
yeah,
UK, Canada, and US, put it all in there because a lot of Aussies don't know that they can, and they make it very complicated, but it can be done and it is worth pursuing because that is a huge
yeah,
chunk of change there that you should get more control
absolutely,
over for sure.
exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly. So, they're telling you to the government, that's what the government tells you to invest in is a superannuation. So invest in it wisely. You have control over it, and which is where I say self-managed. Um, don't let someone else control your funds, right? It's just no one's going to look out for you better than you.
Yes.
Right? So always know where your money's going and make sure you understand everything about it because people will take advantage,
But the only
right?
the problem is people only know what they learn and what do the schools teach, what the government wants you to do. And so
Yeah.
this is what we're trying to create things like these summits and like this wealth education information to show people. There's a different way to build wealth, and it doesn't matter what income bracket you're currently in. It comes down to financial literacy.
Yeah.
And if the financial literacy skills, the financial industry world is notorious for talking over people's heads to make them think that they are not fit to deal with numbers and to manage their own finances, and they have to rely on advisors. And that is not true. If it's too confusing, it's probably not a good idea. Warren Buffett himself says if you cannot explain a stock pick to a 4-year-old using crayon, you should not do it. You should not
Yeah,
invest in
that's
that.
good. Yeah,
And
yeah,
so people do need to take that extra time, like learn different ways, how money works, what works, and kind of learn these. One person recently said, after our consulting, he says, I feel like I'm in the Matrix, and I took like the blue pill. That wow, there is like another way to actually do things and see things. And this is the way that these top 2%, top 1% of people really think. They really are in a different dimension, not just of wealth, but of behavior and mindset. Like you spoke about earlier, the mindset, the actions that they take, and just the way that they think. Thoughts are free, ideas are free. Everyone watching this, you can get your ideas, get these thoughts,
yeah.
start thinking, acting, investing different. And from that, they really could start making the change.
And look, I'm a strong believer in stewardship. So start with your home. Do your cash flow. Understand what your expenses are. Get down to the detail, on a monthly basis, what's coming in and what's going out. Get rid of the things that you don't need. Do you need subscriptions to all these, free to air, TV, Netflix or whatever? Do you need all this? Is it more important for you to sit down and watch TV, or is it more important you to learn something new that's going to create wealth, right? Steward, start with the small things. If you're a good steward of the small things, then you'll be a good steward of the next level, and then the next level, and then the next level, right?
Absolutely.
It's like if I want to go for a loan from a bank, the banks here in Australia, they'll look at a whole 12 months of what your expenses are. Before they didn't used to do that, but because of the new laws, that's what they do,
Hmm.
right? So if you've got in there, that you've got all these, how many coffees do you buy?
Yeah.
Like they'll sit there and say, well, you've spent $5,000 on coffees. They're like, why are you spending $5,000 on coffees? So they even the banks are looking at how good you are as a steward of your own income. And
Hmm.
if you're not, if you can't, if you're just spending willy nilly, they're not going to lend you money. So
Hmm.
even they're looking to make sure that you're a good steward. So start with the small things. Start with your home. Get that in order. Understand where are your expenses. Are you running the air conditioning too much because you just don't want to sweat a little bit or get cold too much? Do you really need that on? Do I really need to buy that expensive handbag or that expensive clothes, what have you? Your priorities are wrong if
Hmm.
that's the case. So be a good steward of the little things because that'll help you grow to being a steward of larger amounts of money.
How you do the little things is how you're going to do the big things. Everything
Yeah.
counts. I was listening to a Mel Robbins podcast this morning, and the lady that she was interviewing said she used to make sandwiches and she would make the best sandwiches ever. That was her quest. And how she makes her sandwich and how she presents that is how she's going to do everything. How she makes her bed in the morning is how the rest of the day is going to go. So I really think
Yeah.
that's totally important. If
Mm.
you were to start from scratch today and you have no followers, no capital, no connections, what secret move would you use to get ahead fast?
To get ahead fast. If I had nothing, if I was starting from scratch, and it'd be getting, being educated in what I want, in what I love. Number one, for me, that was property. So learning everything about it, being a great employee, right, and learning and making my way out. it's like I tell my 17-year-old son who's about to do his HSC, right? Focus on Don't focus on wanting because he wants to buy a fancy car, right? I said a fancy
Hmm.
car is not going to give you wealth, right? Save your money and buy your first property, right? Start with it. Again, I always go back to start with the small things, get those right. So how would I start? I would become a good employer. I'd get a good income. I would take that money and I would probably take 80% of what I earn and put that into it and put that aside until I've got enough money to invest in something in property, right?
Hmm.
And I would invest that in property. I wouldn't be investing with other people at that stage. I would be focused on building my net wealth first before I start investing in other projects or bigger things. So I would get those small things right first.
Hmm.
If I was starting from scratch, that's what I would do, and I would surround myself with a great network of people, right? Um, and and yeah, with a great network of people that are going to help guide me, um, and be able to help answer questions that I may have or point me in the right direction by asking the right questions. And obviously my faith as well as number one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They say God's the best business partner.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
So, what's the biggest lie or misconception about wealth building that you think keeps 98% of people stuck?
Yeah, I wrote down a couple of points here. Probably people. The biggest misconception is that you need to have a lot of money in order to be successful,
Hmm.
right? Nobody starts off with a lot of money unless it's you've inherited it, and you know not many people get to inherit a lot of wealth. So it's that misconception that you need a lot of money to be able to do it, and you don't. You just need to be focused. You've got to have grit in order to keep going and understand that it's long term. There's no short term gain that comes without an increased amount of risk and potential heartache and loss. So the other misconception, the greatest lie, is people telling you some sort of get rich quick scheme,
Hmm.
right? It's not true. I don't care how they pitch it to you. I don't care. It is not true. Do not fall for that lie. Do not pay the thousands of dollars for some horse, that's going to get you rich and make you wealthy and
And
introduce you to
change
these great
everything.
people and
And the
change
next time they
everything.
see you, you won't be, they'll be coming in a helicopter.
Mm. Yeah,
They won't be driving a car anymore. You'll be in
yeah,
your private plane.
that's right. But they'll have their private plane, but you won't. Um, yeah. So the biggest lie about wealth building is thinking that you have to have a lot of money to start. Yes, you do. It's relative to where you are as well. So, if I want to buy a property, I need to have, 10 or, 5, 10 or 20% deposit. Sometimes that's very difficult to get, especially when you're first starting out. But the idea is to save as much as you can for a period of time. Think about it long term. Okay, I'm giving myself X amount of years to come up with this. So I'm going to sacrifice everything now so that I can then enjoy it later, right?
Absolutely.
So there's no get rich quick scheme.
There is no get rich quick scheme. Full disclaimer. You know what's so funny is that of all this different experts and strategies and people that we're talking about during the summit, one investment that I've always been on the fence about because I've never fully partaken in, but I always want to learn more about is the crypto. And I think that's a lot of people think of that as a get rich quick. And our crypto expert was the first to say, this is not a get rich quick. This it takes study, it takes investment. It's very slow growing, just like any other investment out there. So yes, we don't
I
want
mean,
to
look, I
have
mean,
people thinking this is smokes and mirrors and you're going to get rich overnight for sure.
And look, focus on one thing. If you want to focus on the stock market, you get to know everything about the stock market. Start small. For me, the only thing I invest in is real estate. I don't invest in the stock. I don't invest in crypto.
Hmm.
Right? Why? I don't know those things. I don't trust those things. Right? That's just my risk. Analysis that I look at. If I don't know too much about it, I'm not going to invest in it. Right?
Yeah.
But other people that, like you said, are educated in crypto or they're educated in the stock market and they know that and they make money from that, great, right? Do that, right?
Because
But
nothing,
whatever you're going to
none of
invest in,
it
you
is
need to know it.
fast.
No,
You have to
it's
know
not at
it.
all.
You have to learn the algorithm and the fundamentals behind it from a commonsensical approach as well as a strategic approach. So a lot of the time with real estate investing, I find people will just throw around these big numbers and these big deals and say things like there's no rent cap and like we could put anyone in here but even just I often said my best friend in real estate investment analysis is not just understanding or knowing the numbers or looking at the numbers. It really is taking that commonsensical approach behind it. Like,
Yeah.
hello, that neighborhood's built on like a cemetery or like an old dump was there 20 years ago and they just built that. Now there's sinkholes. Like sometimes, whoops, my investor forgot to tell me that part about it. Or maybe they haven't even gone and done that due diligence behind that. But that's really what it takes is doing thorough research, not just looking at things at face value, but taking your own commonsensical approach of the area, doing some research, and look at it like you were a 4 year old and say, would this be a good or a bad thing? And then delve into the deeper analysis because anything on paper is just a hypothetical. Anything on paper is a hypothetical. We have to see it.
And look, I'll give you an example because you just brought up something. I can't give too much away, but what the you know it involves real estate. Um, but one of the richest real estate or the highest cost real estate is actually burial sites.
Oh, that's not, haven't they seen the movie Poltergeist? My goodness.
But I want to. I'm actually looking at investing in cemeteries.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, right.
cemeteries,
This is
that's
what I'm
one
saying.
thing.
This is what I'm saying. The cost of a burial site is so high per square meter, and you only have it for you know, well in Australia it's 100 years or you know 50 to 100 years that you have it, and then it gets recycled,
Hmm.
right? And we're running out of cemeteries in Australia, and and it's a massive, massive cash cow.
And you have
And
very
very
quiet
few people
tenants.
involved in. What's that?
I said, and you have very quiet tenants.
No one complains.
No one complains. They pay their rent in advance.
That's right. But but this is the example I'm giving you is when you're in an industry, you begin to see opportunities. When you've been in it long enough, and you go, okay, and that's only because of experience where I've had family members that have passed away, and I've looked after the whole funeral process, and then I've gone, hang on a second, this is actually a great investment,
Hmm.
right? For us, because we're running out in Sydney, we're running out of places. Nobody develops cemeteries,
Yep,
right? So you see it as an opportunity that is low maintenance, costs involved, and high returns. So
absolutely. The
you know,
wheels
you,
are
you
turning.
mm, yeah.
So, what do you see the top 1 to 2% wealthiest people and families doing consistently that the rest of the world ignores or avoids?
Long-term thinking and strategy planning, right, is the two key things. So being strategic about your approach, and the steps that you need to take towards getting there. Again, long-term goal. Um, they don't get distracted by quick wins or fleeting trends, right? They don't get distracted. So they're the most the key things. So thinking long term, strategic planning, and not getting distracted.
Mm-hmm.
They're the three biggest things. They focus on building their assets that appreciate over time, which we've spoken about, reinvesting their profits, okay, um, and making decisions that benefits future generations, right? So again, there's a common thread through all this, which is the long-term thinking approach.
Mm-hmm.
To all the way from making those strategic plan, doing the strategic planning and thinking, all to future generations. So that's the main thing, and having that those two words that I've said before, grit. That's just digging your heels in and keep going, not giving up, right? Which is and that perseverance, no matter what happens, I'm going to keep going, right? Because it will be hard. It will be so they have that strength that comes from knowing I'm not going to give up
Mm-hmm.
no matter what. Because in business, if you're going into business, for instance, the first most businesses fail in the first 3 years because the first 2 years they're not making any money,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're struggling. The third year they're breaking even. And it's in the third year, they're just starting to break even. It's in the third year that a lot of people give up
Mm-hmm.
because it's costing them and it's a lot of hard work for very, very, very little gain. But they don't realize that in the fourth year is when they see the first fruit come through. And then the
Yep.
second year, the second fruit, and then it grows. You got to think like a farmer,
Mm-hmm.
right? You got to cultivate the soil first before you plant the seed. Before that, you got to understand what is the best thing for me to plant in this field
Mm-hmm.
because some plants won't survive,
Yep.
right? So I've got to understand what's the best thing what's the best seed to sow in this field. So then you got to prepare the ground for that to receive that seed,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then you got to plant it, then you got to water it, and it's got to grow. It's not going to produce fruit, and then while it's growing, you got to keep putting into it,
Yes. And you have to
right? And it's
trust that
not
it's
because it's not going to.
working because it's
That's
working
right.
underneath.
You're not seeing any fruit on that
Mm-hmm.
tree, right, until it gets mature enough to start producing fruit.
Yeah.
So a farmer thinks long term, right? And then when that fruit, what do you do with that first fruit? Do you eat it all? Or do you take the seed in that fruit and plant more of them,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you sacrifice that first one and you plant more, right? So you have this ongoing, long-term thinking and reproducing, reinvesting your profit, right,
Yes.
back into it and cultivating it, making, growing it and building that wealth. A farmer thinks long-term, right?
Yeah.
You have to think that the same way.
Yes. I love and have that faith. It all goes back to faith. Have faith that you could have the with the right tools that it's working. It will work. And I always say that they say 90% of businesses fail in the first couple of years. I think it's the entrepreneurs really who are failing because they don't have that grit that you kept talking about. The grit, the determination, the perseverance to keep pivoting and being brave and moving forward. But this was great. That was some great advice and great tips. Is there anything else you want to share with our audience before you jump off?
Um, just think about that farmer analogy in whatever you're doing. Just look it up, read about it, just understand and go back to the first thing that I spoke about in your core as to who you are and what wealth actually means to you. Because I can guarantee it's not having a lot of money in your bank account. right? So think about the core things because that's going to be your motivation and how successful you become.
Agree 100%. Thank you so much for that, Stephen. It
You're
was so
welcome.
great having you on. Thank you, audience, for tuning in. And make sure to check your inbox for tomorrow for another wealth expert that will be sharing their wealth building strategy. And that will be coming soon. Thank you so much, everyone.